27th, 1993, when our dad and stepmother Dorothy decided to pack their lawn chairs, their bathing suits, and a picnic lunch and spend the day at Heather Beach on the Northumberland shore. They had no idea when they left their home in Walton that late summer morning that it would be the last day they would ever spend together. The day went well, but as the afternoon sun faded into evening, they packed up their things and headed to Cousin Phyllis's, who lived in River Phillip. Dad and Dorothy had brought an overnight bag and they planned to stay all night at her bed and breakfast. They hadn't notified her that they would be coming, and she wasn't home when they arrived at her door. Not knowing that she was only a few minutes away in Oxford, they made the decision to drive back home that night. On their way out of River Phillip, it was probably about 8 p.m., they stopped at Fred Spencer's country store to get some gas and say a quick hello. That was always the tradition for our dad. Every time before we left River Phillip, the village that had been his childhood home. No one could have known that Fred Spencer would be the only person our dad would ever say goodbye to. On this highway number 4, which was the Trans-Canada before the Cobequid Pass, as Dad and Dorothy approached this community of Glenholm, they were having a discussion about stopping at Masstown Market for an ice cream cone. It was just at dusk, approximately 8:35, right on the crest of this hill, in the spot where we have just unveiled the provincial memorial sign. That is where our dad's quality of life ended that night. A 36-year-old man from Truro Heights who had open liquor in his vehicle and a receipt from NSLC time-stamped 6:35 p.m. that evening had crossed the center line and hit our dad and Dorothy's car head-on. It took emergency responders some time to cut the car apart so they could be transported to hospital. When Paul called me at 10 after 10, he said, "Dad and Dorothy have been in an accident. Dad's being transported to Halifax by ambulance. I'm on my way now to pick you up." It was the fastest trip from Windsor to Halifax that I've ever made. We arrived at the BG just ahead of the ambulance, and we were there when the paramedics wheeled the stretcher in. I'll never forget what I saw that night. As long as my mind is sane, I will never forget what I saw that night. Dad was taken immediately for surgery, and the long, agonizing wait began. Through the wee hours of the night, we had notified Andrea, Heather, and Carol, and they were making arrangements to join us in the emergency waiting area at the hospital. Our sisters arrived and our conversations began. So many questions flooded through our minds. What had happened? Who had caused this? Did Dad have a heart attack? How did he lose control of the car? Was Dorothy going to be okay? She was still in hospital in Truro. And what about the people in the other vehicle? We knew it had been a head-on collision. Just before daylight, a doctor came out of the OR to give us an update. And that's when the entire situation changed. The doctor said the driver of the other vehicle had probably been drinking, and that's what likely had caused the accident. This was the first confirmation that our dad and Dorothy were totally innocent in this horrible situation. They were only going home. They were only going home. There are so many stories of how innocent people are injured or killed, and they are only going home. I would like to formally introduce the Honourable Kim Maslin, Minister of Public Works, representing the province of Nova Scotia, who's going to come and speak to us for a few minutes.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for sharing the story of your dad and your stepmom. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. It certainly is a pleasure to be here with you, to join you, representing the government of Nova Scotia and the Nova Scotia Department of Public Works at this very important event. I am personally a huge advocate and supporter of MADD Canada. I have a son-in-law who's an RCMP officer, and he's shared with me too many stories of one like we just heard today. MADD Canada is an important partner in our department's work to make Nova Scotia roads safer. We are pleased to work with MADD last June to sign a memorandum of understanding to develop the Memorial Road Sign Program here in our province. I am pleased that Nova Scotia has joined other provinces in Canada who now have the iconic MADD Memorial Road signs along their roadways. This program is an important way to memorialize people like Donald King, who was taken from his family, his friends, his co-workers, and his community by the actions of an impaired driver. These signs are also an important reminder to Nova Scotians to never drive while impaired on drugs or alcohol, and to never let others do it either. I would like to thank Donald's children, Susan. I'd like to thank Paul for all of their work locally, regionally, and nationally with MADD Canada. It is such an inspiring and moving way to honor your dad. It is an honor to be here today with you as part of the unveiling of Nova Scotia's first Memorial Road sign for victims of impaired driving, and to commemorate the memory of a man I wish I would have had the opportunity to meet, Donald King. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Vaslin, for being here and for your kind remarks on this historic occasion. It's important for our family. I'm going to invite our brother Paul just to come and share some reflections now. And we all have our own perspective as our dad's children, and so what Paul and I are sharing today is just our experience with what happened in that time.
I want to start by saying this is not personal, but I want to say that I am not pleased to be here today. I wish I did not have to be here today. Here's the thing, that we are here today. Having said that, I am honored to be here today, as you said. I agree with that, Roadside. It was a tough day back on that Friday evening in late August of 1993. For me personally, part of my own personal struggle. My wife Shelley was 8.5 months pregnant with her second daughter, Rebecca. And unfortunately, she never got to meet her grandfather. And her daughter Chelsea was just not quite 2 years old yet, and has no memories at all of her grandfather. And that's one of the things that I really have missed. As I see my children go. My niece Kelly is here, almost front and center, and she had a great relationship with her grandfather. My sister Susan sometimes has credits given to her for the many things she's done, and oftentimes I think it's not good enough, because she's done so much over the years in the fight against impaired driving. I've heard her say so many times that she's not going to stop. She's going to keep going and do everything that she possibly can, so that when she meets her father again, she says she has done all she possibly could to to stop impaired driving and to support the victims of this violent crime. If there's something any of us can do, one of the things that I did when my children were young, when I began to understand what happens in life and the consequences of the decisions they make, one of my favorite sayings was, make good choices. And if we can all teach somebody else in our life to make a choice, maybe we can bring this to an end. It has to be all of us working together, and that's what I wish for everyone. Thank you all for coming here today. I know some of you have traveled a great distance to be here, whether it's flying or driving, and giving up your busy schedule to be here. And thank you very much.
The 10 days between August the 27th and September the 6th will be forever etched in our memories. As a family, we waited beside and watched over our dad's hospital bed in that intensive care unit as he lay attached to life support, not responding to any procedures the medical team were working on for him. And all I could think of was, this should not be happening. This should not be happening. All because someone made the irresponsible decision to drink and drive, and now here we are. While the person who's caused this was 3 beds down in the same hospital ward with non-life-threatening injuries. On Thursday, September the 2nd, 6 days after the crash, during our watch, Carol and I were told by medical professionals that there was no possible way our dad would regain consciousness, and we were asked to give permission for his life support to be turned off. In essence, we were being asked to decide if our dad would live or die. We knew this decision had to be made by Dorothy and the 5 of us as his children. It is impossible to convey the impact of the heart-wrenching process in considering the magnitude of this request and the final outcome that would inevitably be. And the one possible hope that there could still be a miracle and that our dad would just wake up. For me, this was going to be the most difficult decision I would ever make in all of my life. It has been 28 and a half years, and to this day, I still say, this is the most difficult decision I have ever had to make in my life. As we wrestled with this in the hospital room, it was Andrea that reminded us of a family dad we had had several years before, when our parents had told us if anything with medical issues should happen, neither of them wanted to be on life support. And Andrea said, we can actually grant Dad his last wish. On Sunday evening, 9 days after the crash, the 6 of us very, very reluctantly made the humane decision to grant permission for our dad's life support to be turned off. We were told by hospital staff that Sunday evening that we should go home and try to get some rest. This would take some time. Early the next morning, some of us were back, and we could definitely see the change in his condition. He was struggling to breathe as life was slipping away. On Monday, September the 6th, at 4:03 in the afternoon, our dad breathed his last breath, and we found ourselves walking out of the hospital room, desperately wanting to wake up from this horrible nightmare. And all I can remember saying was, this is so wrong. Who does anything about this? Several days after the funeral, Carol and I went to Bible Hill RCMP detachment to get Dad's personal items from the vehicle and to get information on how criminal proceedings would go. We'd never done anything like this before, and we had no clue what would happen next. Constable Joanna McGinnis was very compassionate, and she helped us with as many of our questions as she could. She showed us the autopsy report from her police file. When I read cause of death, pneumonia, I said, no. That's not the way this is going to end. This story will be told. Pneumonia? Yes. We had given permission for life support to be turned off. But our dad died because the car he was driving was hit head-on by an impaired driver, and his body could not physically sustain the injuries from the impact of that crash. The criminal proceedings are another whole chapter in this story, and it's too lengthy to share this afternoon at this ceremony. But when the offender was released from Dorchester Penitentiary after only serving 7 months on a 3.5-year sentence, I'd had enough. And that was when I reached out to MADD Canada to see who does anything about this. It's been 28.5 years. That translates into 10,468 days since that fateful day in August 1993. Since that time, approximately 41,870 people have been killed in Canada, and hundreds of thousands have been injured. Impaired driving is the leading criminal cause of death in our country. On average, 4 people die every day in Canada, and approximately 175 are injured in drug and alcohol-related crashes. There are countless numbers of stories of loss of life and injury, such as ours, for so many other families in Nova Scotia. MADD Canada's Director of Victim Services, Steve Sullivan, has flown in from Ottawa this morning, and he is here to bring a greeting on behalf of MADD Canada.
Thank you, Susan. And on behalf of MADD Canada, our Nova Scotia chapters, our staff, our community leaders across the country, thank you for joining us to honor the memory of Donald King. This is the first Memorial Roadside in Nova Scotia, and I want to recognize the government of Nova Scotia for our partnership. Last year, we signed an agreement with the government for the installation of memorial road signs on provincial highways at locations of fatal impaired driving crashes. And we're very pleased to have the Honourable Kim Maslin here today, the Minister of Public Works, to mark this very special and somber occasion. I would also like to recognize our MADD Canada volunteers, members of our local MADD Cobequid chapter, and all of our Nova Scotia chapters, community leaders, and volunteers. It's our volunteers who are the driving force behind all of our work. It's these volunteers with their incredible commitment, passion, and energy who bring MADD Canada's programs and services to communities across Canada. And we're very pleased to have members of our local chapter here with us today. To the members of Donald King's family, thank you for joining us today and for allowing us to share his story. The first sign here in Nova Scotia is special for so many reasons, and especially because of Donald's daughter Susan and son Paul and their whole family who have contributed so much to MADD Canada's work here in Nova Scotia, the Atlantic region, and across the country. We signed the agreement last summer, as these things take a while. Our former Chief Executive Officer, Andy Murray, called us the day that we got the agreement signed, and he gave us our marching orders, and that was the first sign had to be in honor of Donald King. And I know that Andy would have loved to have been here with us for this event, and it should have been him here so we could, but unfortunately lost Andy earlier this year. And Susan and Paul got involved with MADD Canada after their father's death. They're founding and original members of the MADD Annapolis Valley chapter. They've been members of our national board. Susan's a former NASPASCO president. In these years, they've been an inspiration to so many, and we thank them for their incredible work. Our mission is to stop impaired driving and support victims and survivors of this violent crime. Memorials like this one and our provincial memorial monument in Dartmouth are very important. They allow us to honor the innocent victims of impaired driving, but they also serve as a powerful reminder to the public about the devastating consequences of the crime that is entirely preventable. Impaired driving is not an accident. It does not just happen. Someone makes a decision to get behind the wheel impaired. Every hour, on average, 10 impaired driving federal charges and provincial short-term license suspensions are laid in Canada. And all too often, when someone chooses to get behind the wheel, the result is a crash that kills or injures someone. Every year in Canada, hundreds are killed and thousands are injured in impairment-related crashes. And memorial road signs like this one take us behind the statistics, and they show us the real victims of impaired driving: the mothers, the fathers, the daughters, the sons, brothers, sisters, grandchildren. And for everyone, there are friends and communities who are also deeply affected. If we can reach people with these memorials, if someone driving by sees this sign, maybe it motivates them to change their behavior, and we can prevent a deadly crash like the one that took Mr. King from his family. I want to thank the Minister once again, the McCaskill and King families, everyone who has come, our MADD Canada volunteers, for coming with us to join to pay tribute to Mr. King. I also want to acknowledge Tristan Wall from the ministry, who was really instrumental in the installation of this sign. This was our first sign, so it took a bit extra work, and he was very accommodating for all of our requests. And a very special thank you to the dedicated officers of the RCMP Bible Hill Detachment and the Truro Regional Police Service, who are helping with today's events and keeping us safe, not just today, but every day. Police are among our most important partners in the work that we do. We want to thank these officers both for their help today and the support they provide to our chapters all year long. Thank you.
I would also like to acknowledge Megan Wetmore, MADD Canada's Victim Services Manager for the Atlantic Region, who is performing her first official duty in her new role in that position, and she's come in from Woodstock, New Brunswick, to be with us today. And thank you, members of MADD Cobequid, for your support and for being here. And it's so good to just see you again. Yeah, I miss seeing everyone, and so thank you so much for just being here. And for cousins who have come as well. And for our family. On this historical day for our province, we've gathered to reflect, to remember, and to pay tribute, to participate in this memorial ceremony of dedication. Our dad was a man of integrity. He was a good husband, a good father, a good grandfather, and a good friend. And his life should not have ended the way that it did. Impaired driving is just wrong. There's no excuse for anyone to drive under the influence anymore. There are enough options for a safe ride home. Impaired driving incidents are 100% preventable. No one should be injured or killed on our provincial highways because of drugs and alcohol. It's about responsible choices. It's about consideration and respect for ourselves and for others. And it's about the possession of a driver's license being a privilege, not a right. For the past 28 and a half years, as a family, we have not been able to change the reality that our dad is no longer with us. Much time has passed, but that time does not measure the depth of our loss. Some days it seems like it's been forever, and other days it seems like it was just yesterday. So regardless of whether we are someone here today who is a family member, or who has lost a loved one, someone who is injured, an elected official, a law enforcement officer, a first responder, a MADD Canada volunteer or staff, or a concerned citizen, we can all be an instrument for change. May we never underestimate our ability to influence those who are around us, in our homes, in our families, in our school, in our workplace, in our community, in our region, and even our nation. May we be the voice for those voices that are forever silenced. As we look to the days ahead, we can take renewed strength and courage to continue on in the fight against impaired driving. And may the memorial roadside sign we have unveiled this afternoon be a symbol of the hope that we have for a better future. A hope that impaired driving will one day be forever eliminated and there will be safe passage on our highways for everyone. And until that day comes, may we continue on in our life journey with a deep sense of assurance that we'll see our dad again someday. And when we do, we'll be able to say to him, we did everything we could to stop impaired driving. Please join with me in this ceremony of dedication. May this Nova Scotia provincial roadside sign serve as a memorial to the husband, the father, the grandfather, and the friend that we have lost. And may it serve as a solemn reminder to all who pass by and read his name of the devastating impact of impaired driving on the families and on the communities across our province. On this afternoon, Thursday, May the 5th, 2022, in Glenholm, Nova Scotia, we dedicate this provincial roadside sign in memory of Donald Sinclair King, March 13th, 1925 to September the 6th, 1993. Please join me as we observe a moment of silence. Thank you. I'm going to invite Megan to come now and just play a song as we close.
Say for certain, maybe you're still here. I feel you all around me, your memory so clear. Deep in the stillness, I can hear you speak. You're still an inspiration. Can it be that you are mine forever, love, and you are watching over me from up above? Light me up to where you are beyond the distant star. I wish upon tonight to see you smile. If only for a while to know you're there. A breath away is not far to where you are. Are you gently sleeping here inside my dream? And isn't faith believing all power can't be seen? As my heart holds you just one beat away, I cherish all you gave me every day. 'Cause you are mine forever, love.